Good morning. We're going to start with Greek architecture this morning and Greek temples. The earliest of the Greek temples no longer survive because they were also built with mud brick and wood, just like the ancient Near East people in Samaria and also Egyptians. And so over time, they started to use limestone and marble for more permanence in their buildings. The Greeks differed in function from the other cultures, as their altars lay outside the temple at the east end facing the sun. Greeks also gathered outside to worship, not inside like we do as Christians, but outside. And also like the Egyptians, the Greeks designed their temples to be the homes for the gods, where the deity statue would have been housed inside, just like the Greeks did the very same thing as the Egyptians did. So, and there was limited access to the deity sculpture. So people, the priests and priestesses and high people would have been able to get into the temple and visit the deity, not regular people. Figural sculptures played an important role on the exterior of the temple from very early times, and they embellished partly to tell the story of what was going on with the deity inside. And so on the friezes and in the temples, or in the pediments, there would have been stories, mythical stories relating to the god or goddesses. Architecturally, from the front and back to the back, the temples are almost identical. The only difference is the ornamentation that would have been around the actual structure. Greeks usually erected their temples on elevated sites on top of a hillside, which is called an acropolis within the city. So whether you were in Sparta, whether you were in Corinth, or in Athens, they would have chosen a hilltop, and that would have been the highest point within the city, and that would have been their acropolis. So it's not just Athens that had an acropolis, it was all the cities, Greek cities. So let's cover the orders. There are three types of Greek temples: Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian, and they're all extremely important that you know. The Greeks in the mainland Greece and those who settled in Sicily preferred the Doric style with its simplified capitals and columns that tapered in the shaft and sat directly on the base, directly on the floor of the temple. So when I say that, there is no base down here. The column sits directly on the stylobate. They also had unadorned architraves, which is right here, so there would have been no sculpture in here, and the alternating triglyphs and metopes. So here's your triglyph, and then there would have been, in the metopes, there would have been sculpture in there. So that is the Doric order. Let's go to the next page. I have to get off of the highlighter. All right. Next page is the Ionic order, and the Greek islands architects preferred the Ionic style with the volute capitals, and the columns sit on a base. So here is the base here, and here is the shaft of the column, and then here is the volute of the Ionic order. It's considered the more feminine order of the three, the most feminine. Most of the sculptural elements were in the upper part of the frieze, which is right here. So there would have been sculpture here. And then there would have been sculpture up in here. This, oops, I don't know what that is, but I don't want that. This is the cornice. I don't want you to get confused between the cornice and what's right there, which is the pediment. Inside the pediment would have been sculpture as well. Like the freestanding statues, the Greeks painted the architectural sculpture as well. So when we looked at the core and we looked at how the potential for the painting, what they thought was the way that it was painted, all of the sculpture would have been painted just like that in bright colors. So let's move on to the Corinthian order. Later, the Corinthian order was introduced, in which the capital had leaves. And you will see that these are acanthus leaves. And we had a straight column, so the shaft is straight. And it transitions to a base. And then here is our architrave with just a few carves in there, so a few carving in there. Here would have been our frieze. This is our cornice up here, and this is called dental molding. I don't really need to know that, but that's what that's called. The different orders were occasionally mixed, as in the Parthenon. So the Parthenon is a Doric temple. However, on the inside, There is a frieze. It's an Ionic frieze, which is unusual because they usually never mix. But if you look on the outside of the Parthenon, it looks to be completely Doric. All right, let's move to the next page. And this will introduce all three together so you can see what they looked like if you were to put them together and how different and unique they are. And so you wouldn't have mixed. You wouldn't have put, this onto this order, or you wouldn't have put a pediment on the Corinthian. It just didn't go that way. If you were going to have Doric, you stuck with Doric. If you were going to have Ionic, you stuck with that, and so forth. Okay, now I'm going to have you listen to a video by Dr. Beth Harris and Dr. Stephen Zucker on Khan Academy, and then fill out the handout that I have for you for that.